Welcome everyone to It's Called Science, and today we'll be learning about continental drift. So, what is continental drift? Well, continental drift is when tectonic plates of the Earth's crust move around over millions of years. So the thing is that we're not just stationary. The Earth is moving, not as we speak. It moves over a long periods of time, so you won't be feeling anything. Okay, so continental drift is a pretty big topic for science. So we're gonna split this into two videos. This video right here and the one next week or so. So, before we learn about the continental drift, we need to learn about Alfred Wegener. He's the creator of the Continental Drift Theory. So he had 5 main points and evidence he conducted from all his researching in Greenland and different places around the world. So once he learned about that, he composed a theory and proposed it to the scientist. And, well, that didn't go so well. And that is the 5 reasons on why continental drift happens. Okay, nice. You gave us all the information. So can you give us the how to your explanation? Oh no, I don't have an explanation. So the 5 main pieces of evidence that Alfred Wegener created was that all the continents, if you notice, South America and Africa fit together almost perfectly. So that was one reason, that they all could have been once together. Second piece of evidence was that the same fossils and plant fossils were found on different parts of the world. So like you can't just take them apart and find in a different place. And then the third piece was that some plants, tropical plants, were in the Antarctic. So that was completely unreasonable how those plants would survive in the Arctic. So the fourth piece of evidence is that when the sediments of rock are the same on each continent, so if you'd see one in like Africa and the other in South America, they seem the same and well similar at least. So that gave some evidence that they're once together. And fifth, that mountain ranges and big landform structures, they look connected, so they matched up pretty well to how it was back then. So when Alfred Wegener proposed his idea in 1912, the scientists thought he was a little crazy because the Earth moving, that sounds a little crazy, so they ridiculed him for a long time. And then in 1930, he died on one of his expeditions. But after that, 2 men named Robert Dietz and Harry Hess went exploring into the ocean, and what they found was big. It was changing. What they found was a big Atlantic ridge, and they it splits around the world all the way. Not all the way, but the main point is that there are lots of connecting pieces of the world that go together, and they saw that the farther out land is older because the Earth was splitting apart through the volcanic activity there. And then they got all the pieces together and they figured out that Alfred was correct, because before the scientists didn't believe him, but now the 2 men, Robert and Harry, could provide the evidence Alfred failed to give. So while Robert and Harry were exploring the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, like I said before, seafloor spreading. So what's that all about? Is when the Earth breaks apart in the center and then creates new rock from the cooling water and also pushes the 2 sides out. So the land that's far out is way older, so that could date back millions of years ago. And the new rock is way newer. When I mean newer, I mean it's still really old. But the rock outwards is really old. But another big component of continental drift is the 2 types of crust. So we have the 2 types of crust, oceanic and continental. But what we need to know first, oceanic crust is much thicker than continental crust. So that means the oceanic crust will always go under the continental crust. So, because the denser crust will go under, which is called subduction. It's called subduction. And another thing, oceanic crust has a special name as basaltic. As basaltic rock. Continental has a name as granitic or granite. Well, you're probably wondering one major question. How do the continents move? Because continents don't just randomly move on their own. The reason of this is because of the mantle, or it has a fancy name known as the asthenosphere. The asthenosphere has something special that helps it move, it known as convection currents. When heat rises up and then comes back down, this happens all over the world, and that's what helps the continents move around and create the moving tectonic plates. Well, that brings us to the end of this video, so I hope you guys learned and enjoyed from it. There's nothing more to say, so remember, it's not magic, it's called science! He passed away in 1930, but after that, two men named Robert Hess